Welcome to the Wise and Happy Life podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, and mindfulness, philosophy, and happiness practices blend with neuroscience, compassion, and common sense. Hosted by Bob Martin, meditation mentor, happiness coach, trial lawyer, and entrepreneur. This podcast explores how to live with grace, presence, and purpose in a complex world.
Hey, hello, good people, and welcome to another episode of a Wise and Happy Life podcast. And as you know, I always like to start off every podcast with a little story or a little something that I picked up here or there that might set the theme for what we're going to be talking about. And I just want to mention that the title of this particular podcast is that we have a responsibility to beauty. And I thought that I would share with you what my morning ritual is, because our guest, Steven Hoskinson, is going to be talking about beauty. But I get up in the morning. I get up real early, and people think I'm nuts. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I have students, and they send me logs every day, and I respond to their logs every day. And I have other things to do, and the dogs need to be fed and the like. And I take care of my stuff. I do my meditation. I have a nice strong cup of coffee. And then right about 6 o'clock or whenever the sun's about to come up, my dogs can sense it and they come over and they start pawing at me. So we get up and we walk out and we walk over to the school that's down the block. And there's a bench there where I can sit and I can watch the sun come up. And I watch the sun come up every day that it's not raining. And when it comes up, I remind myself that it's a brand new day. And that I'm 75 years old, so there's a lot fewer in front of me than there are behind me. And so it's important because I'm going to trade a day of my life for that day. And I want to make sure that I leave something worthwhile in it. And then I usually get emotional and I sometimes raise my fist at the heavens or just cry. And then I shake it off and we walk the dog back home and I start my day. But I start my day with a little bit of beauty. And that's why I wanted to set the theme with that, because Steven Hoskinson is the founder of Organic Intelligence. Now, think about that for a second. We like organic cabbage. We want organic coffee. We want organic this and organic that. But Organic Intelligence. Steve, tell us a little bit about, your credentials, your story, but really start off by telling us what you mean by organic intelligence.
Organic intelligence. Thank you so much, Bob. Responsibility to beauty. What a thing. And thank you also for those images of you by the sea and really seeing the sun come up in a way. And so each new day, every moment, a new opportunity. Thank you for the inspiration. Organic intelligence is fundamentally the idea that we are beings that want to grow. We are the beings that want to put things together. We're the beings that want to explore new vistas and seize the day, the carpe diem of what's here for us, as you do. And so it's really that, and it is it's a flip side of where I came from, which is modern psychotherapy, that says we are beings that push down what we don't like. We try to push it away, and that pushing away, repression, is what makes us sick. And then the solution then is to stop pushing it away and then look at what we've been pushing away, so that will make us well. And that is not what we think. Mostly, that we think that what we push away, in part because we think it is, the repressed stuff that we're supposed to be looking at. But what we actually push away more is our own birthright to goodness and the experience of that goodness on a daily basis. And it happens in part because of what's pretty well known in science, called the negativity bias, which just has us looking mostly fascinated by what's wrong and trying to fix it instead of seeing essential beauty that we are.
And that's an evolutionary device that worked well for us in the jungle, not necessarily in the modern day, I believe. That's what the evolutionary psychologists feel, that our constant looking out for danger came from living in the jungle. And
it's a great point, and I think that another viewpoint on that would be that it may be a modern reinterpretation of our evolution, because
mhm,
I think that I heard an anthropologist say this once. Say we are, as a species, we're more interested in games of chance than chance of game. We're more interested in games of chance than chance for game. Like there's this notion of us as hunter gatherers. We're starving and we're like naked and afraid out on the island or something. But it's I don't think that's what we're seeing. When we see hunter-gatherer societies, they're working 2 or 3 hours a day, maybe. I mean, wouldn't that be nice if that were the requirement, 2 to 3 hours? But most essentially, what we have is safety, not because we are hyper vigilant, but safety because we are connected within our
mhm,
social group or tribe.
right.
And so our big skills are human relatedness and the complexity of human relationship. And in the modern era, our capacity for complexity has been compromised by the fact that many of us are identified as a tribe of people looking for their tribe. We have no idea of tribe, and many of us. And secondly, the modern era, with all of its demands, including with all of, let's say this, modern society, with all of its demands, has alienated us from our ancestral home. And it's done that by certainly the work week, industrialization, but simply lighting, electric lights. We are made to be synced and nested in nature in the cycles of the rising and the setting of the sun. And our systems wake up and are active with the rising of the sun, and then with the setting of the sun creates a whole new neurobiological system that then has us going into slow down. And those patterns of ups and downs sink us into life on this planet. And instead, we're looking on the iPad at at Netflix, at midnight, or scrolling through Instagram with that light shining in our eyes, and we are desynced. And organic intelligence, in part, looks again at what are the conditions by which we can feel again the belonging and nesting within the natural rhythms of the planet and our own biology.
Yeah. So, the way that I often see that, and if you look at the biblical, there's a time to reap and a time to sow. All of nature has certain rhythms, and
Yes.
if when you speak organically and you go to an organic coffee house or restaurant, they always say seasonal fruits.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
another cycle that we just don't always pay attention to, since we can have corn, 12 months a year. We don't only have it, when it's harvested, when it's fresh, when it's ripe, and when it gives us the greatest benefit. So, I mean, there's day and night, winter and summer, all of these various cycles. Let me ask you a question about that. I've often thought that one of the kinds of cycles that human beings don't notice or think about is that good times and bad times also seem to cycle in our lives.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I mean, if you look back at your life, there's never been a bad time that's lasted, and there's never been a good time that's lasted. They just cycled. It's kind of like you're at the top of your game, and then you're struggling to get going again, but then you're at the top of your game again, and life just goes like that.
Yes,
So there's
indeed.
cycles within us as well.
Yes, indeed, and people are consulting with astrologers and trying to figure out all of the mysterious influences that make those cycles happen or resolve, and so on. We talk in organic intelligence about strange attractors. When you're talking about complexity dynamics, you're really looking at dynamical systems. And attractors is the way that is spoken of of certain patterns that are repeated and certain patterns that come through again and again. And so the notion of these cycles of fear and favor, or I like it, I don't like it, or good and bad, and all of those cycles are meaningful. And I think what we can do is, by recognizing those cycles, begin to what we might think of in meditation, to disidentify from our reaction to them, or even the labeling of like, oh, this one's a good one and that one's a bad one, because it's always just emotion. It's always in change, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, as a lawyer, I was always deeply involved in the cycle of abuse, which is, I suppose, at the extreme level of human behavior, where there's terrible abuse, and then there's I'm going to leave you, and please don't leave me, and I promise I'll change, and then you're good for a while, and then there's oh, I guess he's going to change now, and then the abuse begins slowly, and then it builds up to a crescendo again, and then the cycle goes on, and it not only goes on between a particular couple, but even when those people split and get somebody else, the cycle gets reestablished with new partners.
Yep. Yep. We look at that and understand that in terms of these dynamics of which we call thresholds. And this is, if you look into, most of us are familiar with the term homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
So the biology is working and responding. If something gets out of kilter, like your blood pH, then there's an adjustment. Or if you've eaten a certain diet, then the enzymes are secreted to bring back balance, and so on. It's bringing back balance if we're out of balance. But there's another perspective that includes homeostasis that's called allostasis. And allostasis is the recognition that the brain isn't only being reactive, but also proactive. That the brain's, and this is straight out of neuroscience, the brain is primarily interested in prediction, not
Mm-hmm.
in action, but getting us ready for what's coming. And so that's an allostatic framework. That is, that if we look outside and it's going to be cold and snowy, the system throws a couple of extra logs on the fire to help warm up our metabolism, maybe creates a few pre goosebumps and gets us ready for what's coming. And so the thing that does for us is it is managing our energy budget. Like, how much energy do we need for what's coming, and begins to do that balancing of the budget.
Can I jump in there a second?
Gotcha.
Because again, in teaching meditation, we always talk about ruminating and catastrophizing.
Yep.
Um, so when you say that the brain is looking for the future, if we're not balanced, the problem is that expectation of the future is sometimes very scary. We
Oh,
catastrophize how badly it's going to go, and
no, right.
and that that's where people need to engage in some kind of healing, because it's old narratives that are causing that. um, I've taken you a little afar and afield, but I want to go back to something that's so beautiful about what you do, and it's the name of the podcast. You work with folks that are healing, and the old traditional way is, as you already said, is to take a look at the stuff that you don't want to deal with, and the pain and the discomfort in your life, and push it away. Instead, we're going to look at that, we're going to bring it forward, we're going to examine it, and we're going to dispel it. But you say maybe that's re-traumatizing. Maybe
Yeah.
what we need is to enter new narratives with beauty and awe and things like that. So talk about that work and maybe give us an example of some of your clients that have found a new perspective.
You bet. I think the best way to think of it is like a thermostat,
Hmm.
that people have a certain limit of how much complexity and how much intensity, either good or bad, that they can handle. And because of that negativity bias, we are biased around those narratives around, you know, catastrophizing, like, oh, something bad is going to happen, something bad is going to come. And that increases the internal intensity and often sends it beyond what the system has as a set point of automatic processing. And so what we do is we get around that problem of too much intensity. It's like always pouring too much water into the cup and it's spilling over all the time. And so,
So what do you think that feels like for someone? I mean, what is the body sensation, or can you describe what that sensation I mean, I think we use the word overwhelm, right?
overwhelm, yes, is one example of that.
But what do you think that what do your clients describe to you that that actually feels like?
They describe it as in various terms, whether it's emotional, cognitive, or in sensation body terms. As a sensation, it can be constriction, it can be tightness in the chest, it can be breath constriction, it can be the jaw tightness, it could be like this pit of the stomach churning in sensation language.
Mhm, mhm.
In emotion language, people are talking about being afraid or being anxious or being worried or simply like being numb, not feeling
Uh-huh.
anything at all, just numbed out, like so frozen that you can't feel
Frozen.
anything. Yeah. Or cognitively, you know, you see the rumination, the worries, or just my mind is frozen. I can't think productively. So those are all the descriptions that range from, you know, like the more positive symptoms that, you know, like in PTSD, there are positive symptoms like the anxiety or the sense of foreboding. Then there are the negative symptoms that are classically associated with dissociation, and those are the ones that we've been talking about here. Those are what the clients begin to describe.
Hmm. So so how do you work with that?
Yep. So that is based in recognizing that all what that means is the cup is overflowing. So there is too much intensity, there's too much activation, there's too much reinforcing on what's wrong. And so we get around that by something unique because most people think, oh, what I've got to do is just think positive. But the question and the problem isn't about positive or negative uh, per se. It's really about the amount of intensity overall. So if you replace your negative intensity with positive intensity, you still may have too much intensity overflowing the cup.
Right.
And so we point instead to the beginning steps, which we call orientation, bringing the attention off of the internal worries and thoughts and feelings into simply the external environment, bringing our attention into the outside world, which then is pretty neutral most of the time. Oh, it's a tree, it's a sunset, it's a park bench, it's grass. And that gives us less intensity overall because it's just neutral. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's not scary, it's not awesome. It's just sort of usual and unremarkable. And that helps that intensity come down and it keeps the cup from overflowing on an ongoing basis, tethers us into the here and now.
Hmm.
And
So
so
that's the first step.
that's the first step. Just getting back to everyday stuff. And that's not always easy because we're so attracted to what's wrong. We're so attracted to our thoughts. We're so attracted to our negative sensations, narratives, feelings. And it is often boring. People are so used to high intensity that something as plain and simple as chopping wood and carrying water doesn't seem very interesting. It just
Hmm.
seems like a ho hum. But we've got to figure out some baseline because the brain is trying to get us ready. And to help us feel ready, it is going to be making this non conscious physiological preparation. The result of that is just feeling ready. And so, to make a prediction about what's coming from out there, the attention needs to be out there in order to give the brain something to work with.
Hmm. Please go on.
So, once you begin to feel ready, you begin to feel better and you begin to feel like, oh, I can actually face the day a little bit, just simply from that orientation. And so we use orientation and we say that's the portal into the here and now, begins to help stabilize the system. And I don't know if we've talked about this before, but the neuroscience says coming back to the senses like that is one of the main organizing, they call it a gradient, one of the main organizing influences for the brain. So that the cycles of its ups and downs, because the brain is doing the same thing as the sun is, it's going up, it's coming down, as our breath is coming in and coming out. That organizing rhythm that resyncs us has everything to do with the relationship to the senses and
Hmm.
that getting ready. So
Yeah,
we feel better.
Christina Neff, who is probably the most well-known guru for self-compassion, talks about touch a lot. As mammals, we really honor touch. And in going through her steps, the last step is either to stroke, the back of your arm with your fingers, or place your hands just over your chest and just touch yourself in a caring way. Again, that is a somatic sensation that, I think activates a whole bunch of neural pathways and the like. Another one that we always teach is the five senses meditation. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I hear? What do I feel? Um, do you use that or anything like that?
Love it. We sure do. We like all of those, and coming back to the senses or something is absolutely that portal into the here and now, and the connection into orientation and the world. There are plenty of good brain science reasons for making that happen, but it's just that in therapy, and I was trained as a classical therapist. That's not where we are training people to look. We're training people to observe their feelings. We want them to feel the sensations, maybe even the sensations that are associated with trauma, in a somatic approach to trauma, or maybe to watch the thoughts and correct our thoughts or something. There's all this tinkering with our internal world that we're supposed to do. And what we suggest is to let go that tinkering and just come back to our senses and have a much more simple grounding in the here and now.
But then you talk about creating new narratives.
Yes, yes. And that is maybe the most amazing thing of all, because one of the narratives that we've discovered along the way is that, 15,000 years ago, we walked out of the late Pleistocene and started doing this thing that seemed like a good idea at the time, which was like food accumulation. Like we went from hunter gatherers into domestication of plants and animals.
Hmm.
So essentially, we haven't seen normal since. We ran away from the late Pleistocene and then landed in the box we're sitting in right now. And
Yeah,
so yeah,
I want to just add to that. The archaeologists and anthropologists all tell us that our quality of life like dove down. Life expectancy got less, and more problems came up. So agriculture, although we find that it is the cornerstone of modern society, really wasn't very helpful.
Yep, and we're paying the piper now.
Mhm.
As crops are being challenged in global climate situations, where monoculture is creating issues, where we've imposed glyphosate, and toxins in our food systems, so that we seek now organic foods. So yes, it is a big issue, and that reverberated in our psyche because of this attraction to what's wrong, because of this negativity bias. And so the miracle, though, is that our system has not given up its nature. And that nature is ultimately the wish for
Wait.
greater
Let me just clarify something. You say our system, you're talking about our personal, internal,
biological system. Thank
yeah,
you.
not society systems.
No, thank you. That's right. Our
Okay.
personal biological
Control
system.
system has not given up on us.
Exactly.
Well,
That's
that's hopeful. That's nice
right.
to know.
It is we're just scratching the surface on how good this is, because all the time, although our internal world is often sending us messages of what's wrong, and that's usual, there are also messages that, were we to receive them, things happening within us and are coming to our attention barely, things that, if we were to realize those, would then create a more organized, a more efficient, and a more balanced and beautiful system, like our own person, our own experience. So, for example, clients come in and they're, of course, talking about what the problem is. Oh, I had this argument at work, and this person, one of my colleagues, they don't know what they're talking about. They were being critical of my project. They didn't understand it, and we may ask them then, "What was your project? That project they didn't understand. What was that?" Oh, it's this project where we are looking at the results of, like, removing a dam on a river, and how that creates a whole new ecosystem where the beavers come back and the wolves, and it creates this whole new thing. And then I would say, as you talk about that, it's clear that you get excited about that. What is it that's exciting to you about that? And they're like, oh, it's because nature comes back. Nature is healing and available to us. In other words, they begin to speak in symbolic terms about their own nature being self-healing, and how they are acting on behalf of that nature. And
Oh, sweet. I
yep.
get that. I get that. It reminds me of when COVID came and all the cars stopped, and everything ground to a quick stop, and how the earth immediately started fixing itself and healing itself without that constant barrage of chemicals and civilization. And so, if I hear you right, what you're saying is the excitement is kind of, they see it in the macrocosm, but they understand it also in the microcosm. They see it in what they're doing, but they also feel that they become a part of the healing by healing nature.
Yes, exactly. And the states that are coming up are the states that are healing them in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That excitement itself is what is needed in the moment to bring back the balance of the yin yang system, of the
Mm-hmm.
up and down. Like, that's the excitement, and then they'll say, "Yeah, it just feels so meaningful," and they'll go from the up excitement to the down, yeah, meaningful, and they're restoring the basic cycles of ups and downs that then will return a system to greater sync with everything, with themselves, with their own biological system, and the system of the planet.
Yeah. I've met a lot of folks doing podcasts, and many of the folks have their own unique story, but it is common in that those that have hit bottom and then transformed and then decided enough of this and then healed themselves. The major, when I ask the question, well, what gave you the strength to go on? What gave you the motivation to want to do this? Is because I saw what healing meant for me and I wanted to share it.
Hmm.
And that seems to be the common thread that gives people courage and capacity. And you mentioned before that our safety comes from the commonality and the tribal nature and the communication and the like. Am I on the right thinking here?
You're not only in the right thinking, Bob, you are doing this just in this podcast and every podcast and all the work that you're helping students to do. You're giving back over and over again. And your work, your life is, from what I can tell, kind of a shining example of this.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it's about really getting to the point where you realize that it's not just about me. I got to get me out of my own way. You know?
Right. And something about what we're getting at here too, which is the orientation to beauty and pleasure. We
Ah,
find that there is a beauty and an aesthetic of seeing like other beings grow, to see the light come on in their eyes, to hear them go, oh yeah, maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can make different choices. Maybe I can find something that is wholesome and meaningful, and they light up, and that brings us joy. And so it's this positive feedback loop for sure.
so the sense of connection. I mean, I really don't know where my question was coming. Somehow I'm feeling like the sense of connection is an integral part of the entire positive half of our thinking.
Yes. Yes.
We talk about love, we talk about beauty, we talk about awe and things like that. But ultimately, learning how to connect to other people might help us to learn how to connect with ourselves.
Yeah. And
And then
it's
on another level, even connect with the divine,
right. Right.
if you want to
Because
get spiritual.
right, totally. And at that point, in essence, there's not that big a difference between us and them. We're all part of this same web of life, this divine light, or whatever whatever language people use for that.
Hmm.
But it's out of that connection. And compassion, also love, basically it's our nature. And that it has two sides, because on the one hand there is the joy of seeing the lights go on and people becoming really passionate about what they're here to do on the planet. And then on the other side is you see just the massive suffering that people are having, and your heart goes out to people who are suffering. And so that also is a motivator. On the one hand, we want to meet people's needs where they are, and that gives us a sense of accompaniment with people in their suffering, because we have it too. And on the other hand, there is the joy of the realization of what it's really all about somehow.
So, sometimes I get emotional when I talk about things, and my throat constricts, and I kind of get like that. And somebody once said to me, I noticed that you just got emotional when you were saying that. What were you feeling? And I'd never been asked that before. And I realized that I was feeling a sensation of intense love, and at the same time, the intense sense of suffering. But at the same time, like,
Yes.
being aware of all of the suffering, and at the same time, all of the love. And it's kind of a strange combination of feelings.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
you run across? I'm not sure what I'm saying. Do you know
I,
what I'm saying?
I am really with you on this, because, again, what we're talking about is a combination of intensities, like a negatively valenced thing and a
Hmm.
positively valenced thing. And when they are coming together, you're in a place of an integrative moment. And what we talk about is when those integrative moments come, it's a possibility that we grow the cup. That is, we get emotional, and sort of the cup spills over and tears come or something. And there's crying, there is some kind of discharge, and then we often feel better.
Hmm.
When we have, well, this is the discovery of organic intelligence, when we have the appropriate amount of intensity, and typically in a more positive valence, then with enough orientation, we grow the cup, we grow the container so that we can feel what you describe, which is what seems paradoxical. I am happy and sad at the same time. And that says, your cup has gotten larger. There is the
Ah,
ability to hold both at the same time. And I
time.
think meditation is a nice tool for that in
Yeah.
particular.
No, I think that image, what you just said, is if I don't walk away from anything from this podcast, but one thing, that would be the image of growing the cup, because life is going to give you an awful lot of pain. And just like, one guy who gets a cut and is, oh, wow, 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 I can't do anything, it's going to get infected, blah, blah. Somebody else puts a Band-Aid on and keeps about their business. The pain's the same, but the ability to tolerate is different. Their cup is bigger.
Yes,
Their cup is bigger. And
totally.
so the pain of life doesn't affect them and throw them as well because their cup is bigger. I love the image. It's
Perfect.
a
Thank you
great
so much.
image.
That's the essence of organic intelligence, that we have figured out that the way to grow the cup is not by the negative challenge and facing what's difficult, but actually by the simple experience of the things like the excitement, or all of a sudden the client's hand cups their face for a moment, or they begin to rock gently, or the finger strokes the other finger very softly, or they think of an image of a butterfly as it flew by. Right? There are all of these micro resources, these micro positively valent states that, when they begin to sequence themselves, grow the cup. And that's the remarkable thing, that we grow our capacity not through challenge, which is what everybody thinks because it's the modern way, but we grow our capacity through pleasure and enjoyment and positive experience. That's kind of the miracle.
Oh, oh. That's such a positive note. It's so hopeful. It's so hopeful. And it's true, if we're only focused on, well, let's apply that to something that's happening in current events. I hear a lot of people say, I don't watch the news anymore because it's so depressing. I just can't watch it anymore. I don't want to know about anything. I personally feel that's kind of like putting yourself in the position where you're on your way to the dentist and you don't know what's going to happen, and you're all anxious, catastrophizing about how terrible this thing is going to be. But then you get to the seat and then you find out that it's bad, it's going to hurt, but you know what it is. And that's not quite as bad as being worried about what it's going to be. But how can people be in this current situation where they're constantly being barraged by, and you could be on either side of the spectrum, it doesn't matter. I mean, I read something the other day where somebody was saying, the Nazis did blah 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 blah, and I was thinking the right side would think exactly that of the left side, and the left side would think exactly that of the right side. So it really doesn't matter what side you're on.
Yep.
There's a lot of distress. So how can you grow the cup when the situation is as it is?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's why organic intelligence exists, because you're right. Like, if we're going to face the challenges collectively, then we're going to have to be informed. But how can we be informed if our attention is always being stimulated by what's wrong and what the problem is? This is the media, of course. They're trying to sell their products. They're trying to sell their airtime. So they're sending us messages of what's wrong because we're fascinated, we're addicted to the information of what's wrong. And so, in some instances, or in a certain way, what I think is, it's wise to not be overwhelmed. But we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, too. We
Mm.
we would prefer that people use orientation and grow their capacity so that they can look a little bit at the news. Maybe they get a a digest from someplace. They just get some headlines, or they just begin to get the information. But the main thing is not to spill from the cup, not to overwhelm the cup, because then you got to make adjustments. So our aim is to help people grow that cup, grow the container of being able to be with whatever comes, and then be able to be with whatever comes.
Kind of like for every minute that you watch the news, spend a minute doing a jigsaw puzzle if you like jigsaw puzzles.
Right, right.
You
Or
know,
just or taking those moments. If you're spending time on, flipping through Instagram, you're getting fed the algorithm that keeps you there. Taking a break every now and then, just looking out the window, just connecting to the environment through the senses. Feed your brain the reality of the external world and let yourself do that search and exploration.
and in this situation that we're in the chaos of our current political environment, we have a responsibility to ourselves
Yes.
to do that.
Yes. And thus a responsibility also to beauty in that way.
Because
And
that balances us.
that balances us.
Steve, this has been a wonderful conversation. I think it's been most helpful. I got a lot out of it. I'm sure the audience did. If somebody wants to follow up with this, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they go? Is there anything that you can recommend for, further investigation?
Yeah, for sure. We are totally committed to getting these tools into the hands of every single person on the planet. And so we have a website, organicintelligence.org, and people can go there and they can find what programs are coming. We have programs for individual resilience, and you can work that way, or we have programs for coaching. If you'd like to provide this kind of support and the healing support that comes from this, you can do coaching with us and a whole sets of other learning opportunities. So organicintelligence.org is our place.
Well, everybody, you've heard Stephen speak. He's won my heart, and how he goes about it, and I just love the idea of not dredging. I mean, I think that you have to go back and look at the past and look at the trauma in some way, but also to balance that off by creating new and beautiful narratives that balance it out and give us an alternative pathway in life. So
Uh,
thank you, Stephen, for your time, for your wisdom. I appreciated every moment of it.
I've enjoyed it every bit. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll have all of those website links in the show notes. So for now, see y'all on the other side.